Right, hello, good evening. Welcome to this one-off AOR race. We have 5 different communities being represented by 6 drivers each for this 90-minute race around Kyalami. And I have company this evening for the commentary, so I've got Scott Fell with me.
Hello.
There we go. Good evening, Scott.
Good evening. It should be fun.
It should be fun, yeah. Slightly different event. We've got 6 drivers representing the AOR community. Tinnis in the house, obviously, sort of heading up the team for this one, and a very quick driver always within AOR. And then we also have Jazzman, we have PS Vids, Bleeding Sunrise, Matthew Asbrook, and McQuiz. So a good lineup of drivers to represent AOR in this one, and a lot of other quick drivers in this event as well. So could be a very interesting race to see how we show ourselves against the rest of the PS5 community.
Yeah, like you say, 5 nations, 4 other leagues. Should be good. It looks very tight so far.
Yeah, definitely a lot of close times going in practice. The real stuff happens in about 10 minutes time when we get into qualifying.
Yeah, be interesting to see how many of these are actually qualifying laps and who's still on the race runs. I dare say some are sandbagging and holding back what they can truly do for now.
Absolutely, always different run plans at this point, and not really worth taking too much into account here. But we will keep an eye on, our drivers from AOR, see how they do. We do have most of them, I think all of them, in a black and gold livery to keep a tabs on which the AOR drivers are. Sorry, I'm very much still on the end of a cold, so my voice will be dying at points, and that's when I will just throw it over to Scott to do some talking and maybe mute myself every now and again.
Yeah, I can talk. We can do something. This should be fun. That's my first ever stream. Or broadcast, should I say. It'll be fun to do it with Sneaky, who's done our previous season, which was very good.
Nice to have some company. Definitely helps. There'll be fewer complete silences, and hopefully we'll miss less things go on. Scott's obviously watching in the server as well separately, and I am doing a great job of showing on-track action, just sat watching Tinnis in the pit lane, but nothing too exciting to watch at this point anyway. But yeah, we will hopefully pick up on some more things. Scott will be able to see bits that don't get caught on the stream, or get me to switch across to someone else a little bit quicker.
Yeah, I'll check any replays that we might want to do and get some information if we need to. But just to say, we've got the other 4 leagues are from Targo, VES, which is the Spanish league, GL, which is French, TJR, which is Italian, Targo, the first league I mentioned, is German. So we do have quite a wide variety. I'm not sure what the VES, GL, TJR stand for, but that's the only information I've got right now. But organised by TJR mainly, I think, is this event, which is a very good event, a very good idea, just for a bit of fun.
Yeah, a very nice idea, and potentially something that we might be able to do more of in the future. It does often feel like a sort of fairly segregated competitive scene, the different leagues, and nice to bring it all together, and we are all enjoying the same hobby, and just nice to have different drivers racing on track from the ones that we're used to sometimes.
So we've got 26 drivers and 1 spectator in the lobby at the minute. We were expecting, I think, 30 drivers, so I don't know what's happened to a couple of them, maybe just last minute.
It was supposed to be 6 from each community, but for the time being it looks like we are 4 short, but maybe unexpected unavailability last minute. Me and you got away without having to jump in to replace any of our drivers, which almost happened, so
yeah. so far looking very competitive at the top. Jazz on a 40.2, Coker very hot on his heels. VP McGrady and GL Whitey also very close. Yasko just half a second back, but from what I've seen from Yasko, more to come from him. Tinnis, obviously, pretty much matches Jazz in and out of every week.
Tinnis is in a Ferrari, despite whatever the timing tower says. We are using Tinnis as our, well, we're all in a team set up with him in the entry list just so that we can commentate and stream more easily, switching between everything. But it is messing with that timing tower a little bit. But yeah, Tinnis is in the Ferrari here, just so that everyone knows.
Yeah. Got PS Vids for our AOR group as well in P9, managing to scrape into the top 10 with Bleeding Sunrise not very far behind. So far in practice, again, it's not qualifying yet. We'll get to see everybody show what they can do in a couple of minutes' time.
We did have an AOR event here not that long ago around Kyalami, and Bleeding Sunrise definitely was quick in that Porsche. I think he disconnected in the end and wasn't able to fully show what he could do in that one, but very much hopefully will be on the pace. Say PS as well in the top 10. Hopefully, yeah. Two disconnects on the same track in a couple of weeks might be more than he can take.
Yeah. We also have Matthews just improved by a couple of tenths to go P15, with McCoy's not far behind in P17 on 3 tenths back from Matthew. So all 6 drivers showing fairly well in practice so far.
Yeah, and usually a bunch of consistent drivers this lot in terms of race pace and performance. Obviously, incidents can happen. Kyalami turn 1 often encourages people to make a big late move nice and wide on entry, and then the apex gets very tight very quickly. So we want to see all our drivers and all 26 drivers that are here get through cleanly. I don't want anyone facing the wrong direction early.
27 drivers now.
27, lovely. One more to the party. Very nice to have an almost full grid. Does very often feel like league events do slowly dwindle on numbers, and I say the PlayStation community on ACC not as big as the PC community, and with drivers split between different leagues, very often you do end up with 20 driver grids, which, if you think back to the PS4 days, is all we could race with. But always nice to see 27, 28, 29 drivers on a grid together.
Yeah.
It will create a bit more traffic issues in qualifying as well. Kyalami is not the shortest track, as Bleeding Sunrise, I think, was just calling it a day on practice there, putting it into the wall. Let's hope that's not a sign of anything to come. I want to say that was a deliberate I'm done with my practice laps and let's just throw it into the wall before I jump back to the garage. But yeah, qualifying sort of track space will definitely need to be managed.
Yeah, traffic will be an issue here, especially if some drivers decide to slow down in the final sector. They will have other drivers catching them very quickly.
Yeah, so...
Hey, Jazz, for me, Tinnis is now showing in a Ferrari as number 13.
And for me, who knows how long that will stay. Just, I think, one car completing their final practice lap, and then we will get into qualifying.
Coker and Jazz very close at the top, and Coker, even though only 0.03 of a second ahead, does have 3 purple sectors.
Well,
very close between those two.
It's all there for pole position, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
You can't rule out any of the others up in that sort of top 6 or 7. Yeah. Well, I can say under 7 tenths to Tinnis. It is only practice. but definitely competitive in various bits of the field. We do have a few drivers up the top end there that will be competing. Then the middle pack, very close through the middle of the field as well. 13th down to 19th is just under half a second. But
yeah. Show them what you got. Straight into qualifying then, a driver straight out. Danny CT88 straight out.
Danny CT88 already onto the track. That is a rapid response. We've got a line of the AOR guys out together. I think it's PS Vids at the front. We've got Tinus just making his way around Bleeding Sunrise. So already our guys jostling with each other, and Tinus go past PS Vids as well. Let's keep it settled, lads, and give each other some room. But yeah, already a little bit of jostling to try and keep the quick out lap for the qualifying. Obviously, lap 1 is never the quickest lap, with the tyres not fully up to temperature, up to pressure. But ideally, you want to do that out lap a bit quicker rather than letting the tyres cool down more so, and then lap 2.
Still got McQuiz still in the pits, which may not be a bad thing if he's waiting for a nice large gap, but he will have to start leaving the pits soon because the leaders are already starting
at the top of the hill. So it's you can't leave it too long, or you get completely balked up, and then you do have to let everyone through because there just isn't any gaps. So yeah, I think it was Tinus first round out of our lot. He does have, I'll say, that one car ahead of him, but a comfortable gap. So it should be all clear for his first lap.
Jasmine has made his way through just behind Tinus as well.
There goes those two running through line astern. McQuiz still in the pit lane, so he has missed that.
PS Vids has just chucked it in the wall, and Cheetah had to return to garage. It's not the way to start a qualified lap.
Not the way to start at all. Tinus, meanwhile, is starting his lap, and so far so good. Through the apex of turn 1, nicely clean to the apex. A little bit of a squirm through turn 4, but nothing major. And like we said before, this is the banker lap really. It's not about ultimate lap time.
Yeah, these guys just need to get that one lap in. Just
get your eye and get a lap time, and then you've got your delta. You know what you need to sort of improve on. You know where you'll have had the small mistakes as well, and where the time will come from.
Yeah, and it also gives you that little bit of confidence when you've got a lap time on the board, and like you say, you've got that delta. It's just seeing that go green as the tyres get that bit better in the second flying lap just gives you the confidence to go for it.
Absolutely, but so far definitely clean from Tinus, if not absolutely rapidly on the pace. Did see the number 88 Danny CT go off in front of him, so Tinus will have the first time lap on the board, assuming all goes well in the final sector here.
Jasmine, who have been on board with his laps, looked very similar to what you're describing, very clean, hitting his apexes.
Tinus very cautious with the sausage curb through Cheetah, understandably so.
I think I gave Jasmine my first ever commentator's curse because he validated his lap on the exit of Cheetah.
I was just spotting out myself. Tinus straight into the 1 minute 40s, though 1 minute 40.7. We will see times improve from there, but first lap time on the board and not bad from Tinus. Leading Sunrise second off that.
Matthew in third.
I mean, we have had 4 lap time sets so far. Yasko improving on Tinus's time, 1 minute 40.5.
It was nice to see 3 AOR drivers at the top there, even just for a split second.
Absolutely. I did say to the guys before that we were looking for a triple podium, and just for a minute there we had the top 3 in qualifying.
All of these drivers will look to improve. None of them will count that as their ultimate place.
No, not at all. There's definitely more to come from everyone. I've jumped on board with McQuiz now, who has made out onto track and is just starting his first flying lap now. And not ideal into turn 1 there. Definitely deep on the brakes. Will be plenty of time to find in subsequent laps from that one.
He has put himself a little bit out of sync, but this could provide well.
He's found himself some clear space now, and potentially has just put enough fuel in to run for the session rather than doing 2 sets of fresh tyres here. So the tyres will be nicely up to temperature in that second half of the session.
Tinner's just coming around to finish his second flying lap. See if he can do any improvements.
Just 3/10 away from P1.
Jasmine pops it just behind Tinner's.
So the time's not tumbling on the second lap quite like we thought they would.
No. We've yet the other guys to come through. Corker is now going to come through. We know he's rapid. Already P2. See if he can pull away. Oh, Tinnis has just gone off track on the exit of 3, 4.
Yeah, looks like he's jumped back to the pit lane to begin his second run.
Not seeing many drivers improve on their second run.
No, potentially some just pushing a bit too much and making mistakes. We've got McQuiz coming across the line now to set his first time. And no, he's invalidated. Oh no, hold up, no, he has set a lap time. He is down in P25 still, so yeah, that mistake at turn 1 probably costing him a reasonable chunk, and he will look to improve next time around.
He's already looking much cleaner through turn 1. A little bit deep through 4 though now, but manages to get on the power nicely. His way through Sunset. Back end just looking a little bit twitchy for him, but he's got the nose in.
I think there were some last minute setup changes for McQuiz on this Ferrari. So he will be just getting used to the handling of the car in that sense as well.
He's way to the top of the hill, see if he can just clip the apex nicely. He has got a driver that looks like he's gone wide ahead of him. According to the apex, he's got the power nice and early. I expect this will be an improvement on what he's already set. Provided he can keep it clean for the remainder of the lap. Quiz is coming around the final corner now, see what he can push out of this little Ferrari. Not sure how much he's driven the Ferrari recently, to be honest.
Yeah, not a lot that I know of.
Does improve though.
Yeah,
like takes 1.2 seconds off his previous time.
Within 2 seconds of the quickest lap time, but it is very competitive, so that is only P21 at the moment. Meanwhile, no real change at the front. Still P1 is that first lap time from Yasko with the 1 minute 40.5.
And Tennis has just started his second set of flying laps. He's been into the pits, got some fresh tyres in, completed his outlet. He's now in turn 3, going towards 4. Looking very clean so far. And just as he gets a swerve on the exit of turn 5, I think that is technically.
The commentator's curse is a real thing. It's not a rarity. I've done it many times already. Absolutely.
I'll go watch the other drivers. Where's Coker and Yasko? Just as I jump on board with Yasko, he's bouncing across the exit of Cheetah.
We've had another driver off in the middle of the lap. I can't see who that was. It was just in front of Tinnis, just behind Tinnis. I can't quite work it out. I confused myself a lot there, but Tinnis unaffected nonetheless.
He's returned to garage.
But we have a new driver at the top of the timesheet. Sakulo Racing has beaten Yasko by 0.005 of a second.
Very, very close times these.
Indeed. It's still anyone's in this remaining 5 minutes. It's all about who puts the lap together.
Less than half a second separating the top 8 drivers.
Tennis has ruined that lap, running wide through the penultimate corner. That will be invalidated, never mind the time loss. We've got Matthew still down in P25, will want to find some more time in the Porsche from there. Again, it's only 2.1 seconds off the quickest guys. It's an incredibly competitive field, this.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there is some more lap time in it for Matthew nonetheless.
Got Jasmine coming across the line now to finish a lap. No improvement.
Very strange. Those first laps seeming to be on par with the rest. So all that talk in the build-up, the banker laps are doing the job.
So far, unless they're all just pushing a little bit too much. They do have 2 or 3 laps left remaining on time.
Oh, absolutely. This is not done yet. There's plenty left in this qualifying session.
Got Bleeding Sunrise on the exit of the hairpin in the final sector coming into Cheetah now.
Matthew has just hit the curb through the middle of the lap. Just spun the car into the wall, so he is back to the pit lane, and that will be just he should get 2 flying laps. He is leaving the pit lane now, but not ideal at all there. Maybe just, like you say, pushing that little bit too hard.
Bleeding Sunrise has just crossed the line again with no improvement, but Sakula Racing has improved and pulled a little bit further away from Yasko and the rest of the field.
So something working for him then, despite everyone else just not finding the lap time for the moment.
Should stress, as much as these guys want to get as far up the field as they can, if not at the very front, it is not over until the race. The race will be 90 minutes long. There is a long way to go in this race for any driver who doesn't quite get to where they expect. As Jasmine does improve, go 2/10 off of Sakula Racing into P3.
He's just watching Bleeding Sunrise, and he is pushing very hard. This lap will not be an improvement. In fact, he's fully backing off now to let one of the other AOR boys through. I'm not sure if that's Matthew or who else is in the Porsche. It's just the 2 of them in the Porsche, isn't it?
Yeah,
so that must have been
Matthew.
Matthew. Matthew coming through. He's still on his out lap, but Bleeding Sunrise out the way nonetheless. But another moment of just getting on the power too early, getting wide on the exit curb, and doing well to stop the car from rotating into the wall. He will get 2 more efforts. Still Bleeding Sunrise. He is just settling down, finding some track space again.
Got PS Vids currently on a valid lap, 7.5 tenths just over off of the pole, which I think he'll be very happy in P10 being less than 8 tenths away from these guys at the front. But no doubt will be trying to push that a little bit more out of the car and claw on the other few spaces.
Well, that's the advantage. Once you've got that solid lap time on the board, you can take a few more risks at the end of this session. Really go for it. Take the risks with the curbs, take the risks with your aggressive braking, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
But he is only 3 thousandths off of another position, so every little improvement will help him towards the front of the pack.
Absolutely.
Sunrise is on another started lap. He's not got much to find to gain a fair few spots. Such a tight field.
It is. PS Vid's just coming through the last corner. He has been catching the car in front of him, but I don't think it would have been enough to cause him any issues. No improvement on that lap, and the target of P9 has just moved further up the road. VP McGrady has improved by just over a tenth, but didn't gain a position from that. So PS Vids with just this final lap to try and find another 1/10.5 or so for any further position gain.
We've got Jasmine in
I was
P2.
just about to say that Jasmine has matched the previous lap time from Sakula Racing, that 5 thousandths quicker than Yasko.
Yep. We've got Coca and Tinus. Currently Tinus our second position in the AOR team, setting the exact same lap time as Coca, which probably frustrate him a little bit if he set the same lap time just after Coca to be behind him on the grid. But still time to find a little bit of improvement. Yep, he is coming through the last sector now.
Yeah, so we've got Matthew just starting a lap, so he'll get this one and one more, but we are closing in on the final efforts for everyone now. In fact, Tinus will make the line as well.
Does he improve? He does. Doesn't improve a position, and it looks like that's the end of qualifying for Tinus.
That is Tinus done, so P5 at best, and it is all incredibly tight in the top four. It is just over 0.06 of a second from P1 to P4. Jazzman mixing it up there for the AOR boys. Tinus will be disappointed that he's
Jazzman
not.
has returned to garage.
As has Segulo Racing, so it is all on Yasko and Coca for that effort to take pole position away.
Coca has traffic ahead of him and somebody on a who's on a valid lap, so has no reason to get out of his way.
Just PS Vids also back in the pit lane in P11 now, so just been knocked outside the top 10.
Matthew Asbrook coming through the final sector. He's coming towards Cheetah now to see if this is any improvement for his lap. I mean, the field is that tight. Just over a tenth, we'll see Matthew go flying up towards 19th, potentially even further if he can find that little bit more.
1.6 seconds off pole and 23rd is a painful feeling. Can he improve?
He does.
He does. And up from 23rd to 19th with just a couple of tenths improvement into the top 20. So that is all of the AOR drivers in the top 19. McQuiz P17, unless we have any last
Leading
minute.
Sunrise coming around the last corner. Looks like he's absolutely pushing this Porsche to the limit. The back end was stepping around him on Cheetah. He's giving it up back up. Yeah.
All that tension, and he's back to the pit lane. But that is a very, very, very tight qualifying session. We've got 14 cars within a second of pole position.
Yeah.
And Yasko takes pole at the end, so Sakudo Racing knocked away from that top spot.
We do have Jazzman in P3, Tinus in P5. Our next driver is PS Vids in P11 with Bleeding Sunrise just behind him in P13.
Yeah, the pair of them just missing out on the top 10. And then, sorry Scott, I massively cut you off there.
No, don't worry. I, for some reason, have lost the tower on the left side for the minute. I can't return to garage for some reason.
No, that's alright. I've got it. So we've got McQuiz P17 and Matthew in P19. So very, very respectable qualifying for the entirety of the AOR lot.
Just had a message from Bleeding Sunrise. He doesn't have the sharpness for qualifying today. His race pace will be better, so keep an eye on him throughout the race. He seems confident that his race pace will not reflect his qualifying pace and he will move forward. Bleeding Sunrise had to rush home from the hospital because his girlfriend had had a bit of an operation, so wishing her the best of recovery. But Bleeding Sunrise has made it, but we'll see how far he can get. To be P13, less than a second from the guys up front, who us normal people will class as aliens, to be that close. He should be very proud of that lap, even if it wasn't the best he could achieve.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we were saying earlier, we've seen his pace around this track in that car just a couple of weeks ago or a week ago. I can't remember exactly. But yeah, race pace was definitely strong there as well. And it will be about avoiding any mishaps at the start. That's definitely going to be a factor. We also haven't mentioned the pit stop rules for this race is 2 mandatory stops, both requiring refueling. So the strategy is slightly open in that regard. There is no requirement on tyre change, so there would be the option to do the entire race on one set of tyres. Obviously, you would need one longer stop for refueling rather than just a splash and dash if you're doing that. I think we're most likely expecting drivers to do one tyre change midway through the race and then a second stop just for that. 1 litre of fuel just to satisfy the requirements.
Yeah, I think that'd be the optimum strategy. One tyre change mid-race.
I don't think doing 3 sets of tyres and 3 half-hour pushing stints would make you enough time. But who knows? Someone might try it.
Yeah, and also having this second stop with mandatory refueling does leave drivers the potential to go for an undercut if they feel they're being held up, because all drivers will have to make those 2 stops.
Absolutely, it does open that potential to make that pit stop at a different time when you are stuck in traffic. It is almost a sort of, not a free pit stop, but a pit stop that everyone has to make at some point that isn't a tyre change. They're not necessarily losing out by going for that earlier stop.
10 seconds.
Getting ready to go then. A few seconds left and the drivers will set off on their formation lap. All of these drivers will try and warm up the brakes, the tyres, get everything up to pressure, ready for the braking zone into turn 1, and hopefully, as we said before, everybody gets through turn 1 pointing in the right direction with no or minimal contact at least.
Yeah, it's always that turn 1 where, in fact, you're up to full speed. There's so many tracks where once you hit the green light, it's a short run to turn 1 and you're not actually at full racing speed, so your normal braking point is early enough or potentially too early. Here the green light goes right at the start of the straight, so we do have all the cars barreling down into turn 1 almost at full race speed, but the brakes and tyres aren't really up to temperature, so hopefully everyone takes that into account, is slightly more cautious on the brakes, finds their braking point, and we can keep it clean through. Then turns 2 and 3 are often another problem point. Even once you're through turn 1, it's very much single file really through turns 2 and 3, but as you exit turn 1, 2, sometimes 3 wide, it's very difficult to file back in. Yeah, obviously hope that everyone manages it nicely and we get all the cars round lap 1 facing the right way with minimum to no damage. That's the best for racing.
Yeah. So Jasko at the front of the pack will be hoping that he's still at the front of the pack after that first sector that you've just mentioned. Got Jasko at the front with Sakula Racing very close behind, Jazzman in 3rd, Coker in 4th, Tinnis in 5th, Viewless Folk, which is a driver I haven't yet to come across. I don't know if you've come across that name before.
No, me neither.
No, in 6th, we've got Bumblebee in P7, who we've raced before. He's a very good clean racer and very quick. VP McGrady, who we've known, P8. GLYT, I think I recognise that name, but I'm not 100% sure. In P9, TGR iMech in P10, PS Vids, our AOR driver in P11, GL Strategy in P12, Link Sunrise in P13. Before we get down the grid, P14 for TGRV Pagano, SBL Dancity 88 in P15, the driver who was the first that jumped out of the pits lane in qualifying. Pierre Kohler, P16, McQuiz 17th. 18th for Vess F1 Nano, another name I think I recognise. Matthew Asbrook in P19, our final AOR driver. GL Tajin, P20. Danny Barr in 21, TGR Evovio in 22, Boccajaro, a name we do know, in P23, GL Scorpion in P24, Miguel Vilva in 25, GL John Mimi, maybe?
Jean Mimi, I believe.
Jean Mimi in P26, and GL Skyfu in P27, obviously a GL team, 6 drivers running the GL initials.
I have a 28th driver now that I didn't spot during qualifying, but MFR 6,
Disco,
who knows.
maybe?
Anyway, enough of that. We are coming up to the line.
ready
We just
to
about
go.
got through the grid in time. We are waiting on that green light. Very late across the line, and we're away. We are racing. It is a strong start for the Mercedes on the outside. Sakudo Racing ahead, but Jasko still holding that inside line, and we'll have the inside for turn 1. and it is wide for the Lamborghini. There is a small amount of contact, and the Mercedes gets it around the outside. Sakudo Racing takes the lead. Behind that, we do have Coca and Jazzman also side by side momentarily. Coca is through into P3 as the timesheets go crazy, and I've lost track of everyone else, but it looks like most people away cleanly. We do have a couple of cars just off the back of the field, but I didn't see any big crashes unless you spotted anything.
Yes, there was something going on with the car number 9 and 37 of Danny Barr and Vess F1. I know both have got damage on the rear. I'm not sure if any other cars were involved. All the other drivers seem to be roughly the same order where they were. I haven't seen anybody caught tumbling down the order as the Porsche's off. Sorry, sneaking, but Danny Barrow's just lost the car into the S's at the back.
Yeah, that is big damage on the rear of the car there, so not a good start for him. I do notice that we've got quite a collection of our AOR drivers. P12, 13, 14, Bleeding Sunrise up 1, PS Vids dropped a couple off the start, but McQuiz up 3 places and all running line astern in that pack.
PS Vids does appear to have some damage to the rear of his car as well. There's someone driving into the pits already.
Now that could of course be tactical. It could be to get out of the traffic and just complete one of those stops early. We do have multiple cars actually into the pit lane. This is the stage of the race where actually you can be hampered a little bit from your own pace just because of all the traffic, so that early pit stop may be just to get away from that, put a litre of fuel in the car and then run 2 stints from here with clean air.
Jazzman and Tinnis P4 and P5. I imagine Tinnis will now be just... Well, he's got to look in his mirrors anyway for the Lamborghini just behind, but he will be starting to just look after those tyres, just bring them in gently and hope he can just stick with the group ahead and take on his opportunities later on when they wear their tyres, and he'll be hoping to have better tyre life at the end. Usually very good at conserving his tyres is Tinnis, but Jazzman pushing up towards Coca, 3 tenths back.
Yeah, Jazzman will be disappointed to have lost that position off the line, but the pace from these top guys does look like it's going to be incredibly even, so we may well see the lot of them close together for the entirety of this first stint.
Bleeding Sunrise in P11, probably the biggest gap at the minute. Sorry, PS Vids with a 1.5 second gap to Bleeding Sunrise, but the top 10 are all staying well within a second of each other, so the pace is very hot at the front and all very close.
Yeah, Coca is right on the back of Yasko for P2, coming down the start-finish straight, but the slipstream for Yasko is bringing him onto the back of the Mercedes as well. I don't think anyone's going to be close enough to make a move, and at this point I think they'll just be looking to settle in and try and pull away from the rest of the field a little bit here anyway. Jazzman just slipped off the back of the top 3 by a fraction, nothing major, but just not quite involved in that very tight group in the top 3. We have had PS Vids through the pit lane. He has completed one of his stops. I didn't spot him going in, but that is a quick pit stop. So that will be just a quick splash and dash for fuel, I imagine.
I've just been watching the restart. PS Vids did have contact in turn 1. Went into the back of somebody and went into the back of him. When you started saying he got into the pits, I thought he might have gone into repair damage, but if it's a quick pit stop, maybe not.
It's a quick pit stop, and it does look like there's still that bit of damage on the rear of the car, so maybe just a tactical choice to get out of the traffic.
There was contact further back as well, a Porsche going spinning. Doesn't look like anything more than a racing incident, unfortunately, with 4 Porsches of 4 cars with a very similar livery all making contact after the spin. It looks like that was a bad start for that team, even though none of them appear to have done anything wrong.
Yeah, a real shame that we have had those small incidents at the start. It does seem to happen in almost any race Always difficult to get that many cars cleanly through. Leading Sunrise. Oh, sorry.
Tennis has just come in, well, he's just got through turn 1 and into 2, and just one of the Porsches that had the incident very early on has pitted, obviously to repair the damage, but now will suffer the pain of being lapped by quite a lot of drivers.
Yeah, not the place you want to be after the pit stop, obviously.
Yeah, he's letting a lot of cars through, which is what he has to do, unfortunately, but not the start he was looking for.
Leading Sunrise looking quick in P11. He is right on the back of the Ferrari in 10th position, and the queue in front of that is very close as well. It is all the way up to P6. They are within half a second of the driver in front mostly.
Jazz and Tinnis just dropping back a little bit from the back further ahead, but Jazz and Tinnis they will be in a party. Well, we know they are in a party together. They will be working together.
In fact, that is the same Porsche that Leading Sunrise just came past, as you mentioned with Tinnis earlier. So yeah, there is a slight gap between P9 and P10 here. That was slightly thrown off by the back marker in the middle of that. But nonetheless, Leading Sunrise definitely putting the pressure on to try and get into the top 10.
Ferrari does appear to have some damage to the rear of it ahead of him as well, so maybe that will entice him to make him think he's got some damage. Maybe GL strategy is struggling with the car a little if he does have damage, especially at the rear. These cars are very highly affected with aero damage, especially from the rear, it seems, in this game.
Yeah, it really is all about the balance, and sometimes just knowing you have that damage, especially on the rear of the car, can knock your confidence, never mind the actual performance loss. If there is just a sign of any weakness in any corners where the Ferrari's not got the confidence, Leading Sunrise may look to take advantage of that.
Top 4 drivers still very, very close. Nothing to separate them between them. Sakula Racing is in the advantageous position of just having clean air and trying to do his laps without looking too much in his, whereas the other 3 drivers, I imagine, will start to hurt their tyres by staying in the dirty air.
Yeah, as long as he can keep that P1, he'll be happy with this. He can manage his tyres. It's just if he has any threat from that Lamborghini, he'll have to take that into consideration. But it's his race to manage for the time being, and he will be happy that it is 3 cars behind him and not just the one, because Yasko absolutely cannot just send any sort of wild dummy moves, because Coca and Jazzman are right there that will take advantage if he compromises himself into any corner exit.
He's very close out of the last corner, even though the Mercedes does have an excellent drive out of that last corner.
I mean, all 3 of these guys tucked right into the slipstream. Jazzman, just a couple of times I've seen that exit out of the final corner, not quite staying as close to Coca as the others seem to be able to stick to the car in front of them, but once again, no one close enough. It is a bit of a train here. We've got slipstream from one car to the next to the next.
Tin is still just watching in 1.3 seconds back currently, but it doesn't seem to be dropping any further back, so he's probably just looking after his tyres again and just waiting for something to happen. He will not want to attack Jazz, he will just leave him be. Jazz currently having the fastest lap of the race so far, but that will change when the guys bought on fresh tyres.
It may be that Tinnis is just looking after the tyres, knowing that the pace is there. There's no point really being right on the back if you know you've got nowhere to go, so he may be taking it easy and just looking to see that gap isn't extending.
We've got Bumblebee and GL Whitey in P7 and P8 very close. Bumblebee just wide into the hairpin. Giving Whitey some confidence that he's going to get him at some point.
Oh, that's late on the brakes, and he's gone for the move. He's down the inside. Bumblebee looking for the cutback, but Whitey makes it stick.
Very nice move. Was the Mercedes facing the wrong way?
Oh, who
That is
that?
Sakulo
That
Racing
is
from P1.
Sakulo Racing from the lead has gone off the track on the exit of Cheetah. That you assume is a hit with the sausage curb or just running out wide, but that is big damage, and he has gone through and past the pit lane. So that will be another lap. I didn't catch it early, so I don't know how hard the contact with the wall was, but there is definitely some damage on the back of that car.
I'm just on with Sakulo now in the replay. Does just catch the sausage curb in Cheetah, loses the rear, glides nose first, then rear slaps into the wall. It will be heavy damage. That will be some time spent in the pit lane when it comes to repair.
A painful lap, and that really will put him out of contention in this one.
He had to wait quite a while as well before he could rejoin due to all the traffic. Again, a situation where these drivers are so close, a slight mistake like that just costs you.
He's already down to P11 and struggling to bring that. Well, I say struggling. I've seen worse. The car is definitely drivable. He is probably got the steering still straight. There's no damage there. It does look like he is relatively on pace to bring it back, but he will come into the pits this lap almost certainly.
Well, now Jasko leads, catching the number 16 car for Ferrari of IMEC, who is a back marker obviously in P24, but that potentially may give, as Jasko sets the fastest lap of the race now. He's got through, or
got the clear air. Yeah.
Got the clear air ahead of him from Sakulo Racing's incident. And he may look to stretch that gap. He's already 8 tenths clear of Cook, and he may look now to push a little bit and pull a gap away. Again, strategy plays heavily into this. Maybe some drivers are running lighter fuel at this stage compared to other drivers.
Yeah. Speaking of strategy, we have McQuiz into the pits for his first stop as well. He was running in P11 just before that. Did look like, because I know the gap between Bleeding Sunrise and McQuiz was not huge early on. I hadn't been keeping track of it, but he definitely was a little bit further back. But pit stop is relatively quick, so I don't think there would have been damage to repair in that one. Very tough to tell with all the strategy.
Oh, yeah.
That's interesting.
It is.
I thought he would have been in, especially with the 2 stops to make as mandatory. You'd have thought get that damage fixed as early as possible, even if you're doing your quick splash and dash fuel stop now and you change the tyres later on. An interesting call there. Back at the front, Coca has not let Jasko get away, so despite that fastest lap, these top 3 are all sticking close together, and Tinnis as well is actually slightly closer to Jazzman than previously rather than being dropped further. So we have not lost the battle for the front. This is going to continue for a long time in this race.
Got Matthew chasing down. He's in P16 currently. He's got P15 and 14 directly ahead of him. As they battle for position, Matthew will be looking to pick up the pieces from this. I'm not sure how long these 2 drivers have been this close to each other, but one was definitely the guy, Porsche P13 was wide in the final corner, so either just a general mistake or pushing to stay ahead.
I don't know whether that was just a spectator cam moment, or it did look like Matthew just briefly downshifted into neutral in the middle of turn 1. If he did that, won't be helpful, but he has just dropped off the back of P14 by a little bit, so maybe that did happen. Maybe I'm not imagining it.
Tinnis have pulled back even a little bit more time towards Jazzman now. Does appear to be ebbing and flowing the gaps, because Coca does seem to be quicker in this final part of the lap than Jasko right now. Jasko does seem to have the edge at the start.
It'll be interesting to see at the front who jumps first for that first stop. Obviously they can really make that second stop whenever they feel like. But at the moment, I mean, the pace is so tight between a lot of them that none of them will really feel like they're being held up. And as much as anything, these guys will enjoy racing. Wheel-to-wheel racing, as much as strategically sometimes might not be the best thing. It is what we all enjoy the most, and nobody wants to pit their way out of that battle. They want to make the move on track, really.
They will also be scared that if they do pit, they come out into traffic and lose any advantage that they would be looking to gain.
As it's spreading out a little bit now, that is very much the risk. Sakule Racing has now come into the pits to repair that damage. So just a couple of extra laps before deciding that's not worth it.
These top four drivers, it is good to watch. It makes you wonder how they're doing it. They're hitting every apex every single time and lapping. I mean, we've only been going 17 minutes now, or coming up to 17 minutes, and to be this close to each other just shows the highest level of ability with these drivers.
Absolutely, it is lap in, lap out consistency, which really does show them apart from the rest of the field. Sometimes we saw in qualifying the lap times were incredibly close for many people, but the gap to P5 from Tinus now is 4 seconds, even in just, they say, it's just over 15 minutes of racing we've done, and that is primarily down to consistency rather than the outright pace. And even more
Whitey
incredible,
has made his way further up as well. After we watched him pass Bumblebee, he's managed to pass McGrady, who seems to have fallen back towards Bumblebee now. Very close. They've got a lapped car ahead of them. Could be interesting to watch how this battle plays out.
Yeah, so that is our sort of second pack at the moment, isn't it? Whitey just actually pulling away from it a little bit. Muleless Folk was in a bit of no man's land, but he will need to be looking behind him in a minute, as we have a car off ahead, number 53. That was Boccajaro, already a lap down, and that is a return to the garage from that incident, so that will not be helping his race, but did clear
Matthew
the way.
3/10, sorry Sneaky, we've got Matthew 3/10, well, less than 3/10
Yep.
off the guys in P12 and 13 who are very close to each other. They've been going at it in the first sector. Matthew just biding his time. Ooh, the wide moment there for the Ferrari.
Absolutely, that could provide the opportunity. It's a tight corner to overtake into. The Ferrari doesn't defend the inside. Matthew, understandably not wanting to commit late on the brakes. You go for the move there, you are putting an enormous amount of trust in the car on your outside not to turn in on you, and it's very easy to miss your braking point there as well. So the sensible call made from Matthew there as he takes
Clouts the curb.
Yeah, about twice as much curve as you want to take through there, but
as he comes into the pit.
Yeah, I was about to say he'll rebuild and close the gap again, but looks like he's feeling like he's being held up there, and he's going to make his first pit stop.
I'm not surprised. It probably is a good call if he can come out into clear air. We'll watch how his pit stop unfolds.
Absolutely, there is some decent clear air in that part of the track where I do expect him to rejoin, so
yeah, strategy again into it. We don't know if he's going to change tyres at this point, or well, I expect at this point he's not going to change tyres, it'll just be a fuel and go, but he's stationary still for quite some time.
That's interesting. Yeah, I would have called that to be just the quick fuel stop and get some clear air. He is changing tyres, so he will come close to the leaders coming round and being a lap down. We do have the leaders just coming through the beginning of the final sector.
Matthew is moving again now in the pit lane, so he will come out ahead of the leaders, but it does seem to be a 30-second stop, so I imagine that's fresh tyres and potentially taking quite a bit of fuel just to have a splash, one more splash and dash from one to the end.
Yeah, that's an interesting strategy call there if that's what he's gone for.
Potentially working out well for him now because he has come out in clear air. Does have Sakulo Racing directly behind him, which I imagine he will not try and fight too much, but maybe he's not a driver he recognises, but expect Sakulo Racing will have the pace on Matthew, unfortunately.
Yeah, you would imagine, given the pace at the start of this race, that won't be too much of a closely fought battle, and Matthew will probably not fight it too hard, and then, as you say, we'll have clear air. We'll have another driver off on the exit of turn 1.
I think
19.
they've just stopped.
Yeah, they've just made their or they have made both stops. So
I think they just stopped to let everybody through, but it seems to be delayed in getting away again.
Yeah, I didn't catch the start of it. I just saw the yellow flag. It was right behind our leading pack, so I was wondering whether it was someone up the front, but no, all clear. Yeah, we have just got Jazzman dropping off from the top 2 slightly. Nothing major, but just sat over a second behind Cobra in P2 now.
And Sakulo has passed Matthew. I expect Matthew's just let him through. Matthew knows he's not his fight today.
He could easily, despite not recognising the names of all the drivers here, he'll have seen qualifying. He may well have picked up that was the driver on pole, well, sorry, P2, not pole position, but leading the race early on. And yeah, like you say, sensible move at this point. There's no point fighting one car and losing yourself lots of time. It really does come down to how the strategy plays out, and the strategy...
the Ferrari of Cisco has just made contact with the Porsche that Matthew was fighting with.
Oh, and Cisco is all the way round.
He went down the inside. Yeah, he went down the inside. Very late on the brakes. Porsche turned in. Did leave more than a car's width, and the contact just resulted in the Ferrari spinning. Porsche had a little bit of a wiggle, but managed to keep going in a straight line, but has pitted straight away.
He is into the pit lane, so maybe that is damage to be fixed immediately. I would imagine
see what kind of stop Cisco does. See if he's got... If he has a longer stop, as the Ferrari is also in.
The Porsche is definitely more than just a fuel stop here.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had plenty of people pitting earlier than I was expecting. We've got quite a number of drivers with just the one stop remaining already, and TJR EVO with both mandatory stops completed. It does make it difficult to follow exactly who is where in terms of net positions. PS Vid's currently the lead driver to have completed any stop, so that strategy could be working out well. Obviously the top 4 will be further up the road even after making a stop, but whether he can climb himself somewhere well into the top 10 with that strategy will be determined when we do see the likes of VP McGrady, GL Whitey come in for their stops.
Matthew has managed to jump both the Porsche and Ferrari that he was battling before his pit stop, and he's actually quite far ahead.
Okay, so good progress for Matthew despite the slightly longer stop than just a splash and dash.
Yeah, so he's gained 3.6 seconds on the Porsche. I thought it was a bit bigger than that. The timetable was moving around as I was looking at that. But the Cisco of the Ferrari, obviously he was delayed into the pits after his spin, and he's a further 18 seconds back from the Porsche. He's definitely lost out. Matthew making the right call in pitting early and undercutting both of those drivers.
Yep. I mean, again, I think there may have been damage to repair in both those pit stops, so not necessarily a pure undercut.
No. We've got Sakulo Racing, at least has the fastest lap after his unforced error, as we said earlier on in the race, trying to make his way back up the order.
I mean, they could still be a good result for him in this one. obviously, I think the top 4 with no issues will be well out of reach. But he's got the pace, and
he's got the
there'll
pace.
be a top 10 result probably there for him if he can keep it clean from here to the end of the race.
Top 4 have spread out a little bit again now with 1.5 seconds.
Yeah, it does. It's tough to tell whether that's Yasko just getting on with it a bit more, trying to open up the gap, or whether they are realising that overtaking isn't really on. Just Tinnis having a big slide and lots of opposite lock through turn 4, the left-hander at the top of the hill there. Yeah, maybe just that they are looking to look after the tyres at this point, and running so close in behind the car in front of you is just a higher risk factor in terms of incidents if you're not going to be able to make that move.
Yeah, but that's it. I mean, you are right in what you're saying there, but it seems to be the opposite for P6 and P7, just less than 4 tenths apart. VP McGrady pushing up to Whitey.
Yeah, this is a close battle. It was around half a second a few laps ago as well, so this is very consistent. Whitey wide on the exit of the hairpin at the top of the hill. There are different lines you can take through there, prioritising entry or exit, but it did look like he was very close to the edge of the track on his way down the hill.
Bleeding Sunrise momentarily has been ahead of Bumblebee. Currently, I think.
No, Bleeding Sunrise is
still
P9 ahead of Bumblebee. Yeah.
Bumblebee was
3
not far off
seconds
McGrady.
back.
Yeah, I think Bumblebee's made a mistake somewhere then, because he's not pitted, and he was going with VP McGrady. He was in P8, and now he's dropped approximately 10 seconds.
Well, he is now sat just behind GL Strangi. Don't know if you can find a replay of that one, and
I'll have a look, see what I can find. I'm not sure when. I missed when he dropped down the order.
Yeah, I hadn't been keeping a close eye on it myself. There's a lot of moving parts with the pit stops here. The order does feel like it's been changing consistently, despite most of it not being on-track overtakes. So PS Vids, like I said earlier, lead car having done a pit stop. He has already gained a position on one driver that still has 2 stops remaining. He'll be looking to close the gap further ahead. He's got 11 seconds to P11. Definitely will be well within the top 10 once the other drivers make their stops. Got the leaders just crossing the line now while he's coming through the middle sector, so it looks to me like PS Vids is on a good strategy and in for a good position once it all filters out. And Sakudo Racing making his way through past another car. That would have been... No, I'm not sure that was for position even, despite him being down the order from where he would have wanted to be.
It took me a little while, but Bumblebee was chasing VP McGrady all on his own, got on too much on the curb in turn 2, bounced the rear of the car and put himself just touching the wall. He's carrying some small damage to the rear of that Audi, and as a result lost those positions.
Yeah, so that is where Bleeding Sunrise gained that position from, but like you say, Bumblebee still going, and the damage obviously very manageable. The car looks to be handling okay despite that. as we've just reached a third distance in this race. It does feel like plenty has happened already.
Somebody's just gone off. I think it was Jasmine. I think Jasmine's just gone off.
That is Jasmine just rejoining into the final corner.
He has lost the position to Tinnis. You go find out what happened there. I'll keep you updated.
It's only a small time loss there, and I can't see any obvious big damage on the car. So he may have got away with one there slightly, but like you say, that's P3 conceded to Tinnis. And the gaps are stretching further. Jasko in that Lamborghini does seem to have the pace advantage now over the Ferraris. Coca has dropped 2.5 seconds back from the lead now. Obviously the first 15-20 minutes of this race, that was well within a second, and there was a lot of pressure at the front.
Jasmine just turns in too early to Cheetah, just clips that sausage curb, sends the car around, but as talented as Jasmine, he does hold the car, he doesn't actually end up in the wall, he just loses the time. Well, damaged his tyres a little bit, but it won't be, it's not the end of the world what's happened to him there.
No, I mean, the pace he's maintaining now, he's 2 seconds back from Tinnis, and that gap is remaining very stable over the course of this lap. So, like you say, a mistake, but he's managed to hold on to it and come away with no damage, which is obviously a massive factor. You look at where he is after that mistake compared to Sakudo Racing, who is fighting his way back through down in P17, so could have been a lot worse for Jasmine there.
Like you say, PS Vids is looking very strong as the lead car on one stop so far.
Absolutely, his pace seems to be keeping him well within play. We should start to see a few more stops coming in the next sort of 10-15 minutes. You'd imagine that's where the majority will be making their tyre change.
GL Strange's just got into the pits, who Bleeding Sunrise was about 1.5 seconds further back from. Worth keeping an eye on that battle, see if Bleeding Sunrise can perform some sort of overcut on that car.
Bleeding Sunrise still got the pressure behind from Bumblebee, but well into the top 10 at the moment, up into P8 after that stop from Strange.
Still McGrady and White is still going at it, not very far apart at all.
It's been a long run battle, that one. McGrady not able to find a way through, but you would assume that if he could, he might be able to pull away a little bit based on that ability to just stay so close behind for so long. You must have a little bit of extra pace.
Jasmine carries on, even after his little spin he's decided to keep going with his strategy. Slowly taking some time back out of Tinnis now. He's called back 4 to 5 tenths on that lap alone.
Yeah, so not struggling too much with the tyres. Having said that, Tinnis definitely starting to drop away from Coca as well a little bit. So everything's spreading out just that little bit more in that battle for P1. Just jumped on board with VP McGrady just to do a couple of laps here to see exactly how close he's getting, whether he can get any move done on Whitey. The BMW looking smooth and comfortable so far, but it is big pressure from behind, and you do wonder whether there will be a mistake at some point which just gives McGrady the opportunity. Whitey he's taken that same line through the hairpin at the top of the hills, going slightly deeper into the corner, just running it slightly wider on the exit, so it does look like that is a conscious choice of line as opposed to him being deep into the corner like I thought on that previous lap.
Got Bumblebee who's clawed his way straight back onto the back of Bleeding Sunrise now. Nothing in the gap in terms of the time. Bumblebee looking like the quicker car so far. Bleeding Sunrise looks like he's struggling a little bit with the rear of that Porsche.
Will be that territory, won't it? The tyres just starting to go away, and is often an issue with that Porsche. Any sliding in that car can destroy the rear tyres quite quickly.
Bumblebee's through down the inside into turn 1.
Yeah, I've just joined on board, just slightly too late.
Bleeding Sunrise didn't put up too much of a fight there, and probably rightly so. I think he's starting to lose the rears, and possibly doesn't have the tyre life in the car to defend too much without losing too much time for himself.
He'll be looking to just eke out that extra 3 or 4 laps to get to the midway point of this race and put a fresh set of tyres on, I imagine, and then see if he can find his rhythm and some pace again on the fresh set of tyres. But definitely a good consistent race for Bleeding Sunrise so far. It will be very interesting to see where PS Vids ends up in all of this. The gap up the road to Bumblebee and Bleeding Sunrise is definitely less than a pit stop, I would have thought. Further up the road,
Bleeding Sunrise is in.
There we go. Yeah, I was just saying, I think PS Vid's sort of net position will be between McGrady and that Bumblebee Bleeding Sunrise battle. We probably won't find that out for sure until after the second stops, because
we have no idea what people are doing.
No, absolutely. But
it would be nice if we could access that somewhere somehow.
It would be lovely to give us some more information, but we do have to make a guess on that. I tell you, it's not half as difficult as trying to guess when there's some weather involved what tyre people are on in terms of the wets or the dries. That messes with your head even further. But yeah, Bleeding Sunrise in for what will almost certainly be a mid-race tyre change, so that will be a longer pit stop. PS Vids is already well and truly through. We've got McQuiz just coming through the final corner. He's got Secule Racing all over the back of him, but yeah, he will come through. That is where, again, we're saying we don't know what everyone's doing. McQuiz may still be yet to make his tyre change, and Bleeding Sunrise will have just done the tyre change in that pit stop, so their second pit stops may be offset in the opposite direction, and Bleeding Sunrise will have a quicker final pit stop.
Yeah, hopefully those drivers, when we left, they were in the same party that could communicate that, and if Bleeding Sunrise is on a more optimum strategy with fresh tyres, hopefully McQuiz won't give him too much of a hard time if indeed Bleeding Sunrise is quicker.
These guys are, yeah, in a way they're a team representing AOR, and like you say, in the same party chat, they know what's going on with each other's races. Actually, I'm not sure Bleeding Sunrise was in the party. Now I say it, I think we had
PS Vids was in the party.
Yeah, where we had Bleeding Sunrise and Matthew weren't in the party, but the other 4 are together. Either way, these guys know what's going on. They're not going to do anything silly. Hopefully that's not a commentator's curse. But already Bleeding Sunrise is right on the back of McQuiz, so
looks like McGrady's made a bit of a mistake to me there. The gap.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that gap is now 8 seconds, which he's obviously been all over the back of Whitey for the last 5, 6, 7 laps. And in fact, he's lost more time. Yeah, there's big damage on the front of the car.
I'm on the way to the replay, see if I can find what happened.
Yeah, no, he's got heavy damage on the front of that Lamborghini. The bonnet is pushed up, so that will be a long pit stop for McGrady. It is, in a funny way, fortunate timing that it is this midway point in the race, and he would have been making that pit stop anyway. But overall for his race, that is definitely bad news. We do have PS Vids already into the top 10.
So just back on board with McGrady and forget the other driver now, 'cause I've got no driver list in front of me.
It was GL Whitey.
GL Whitey, that's it. Very close through from the hairpin at the top of the hill. McGrady making moves and making shapes towards Whitey. Whitey pulls away a little bit down the pit straight. McGrady and the exit of turn 5 just gets too much on the curb on the left-hander onto the little mini straight at the end. Just gets too much on the curb and goes nose first hard into the wall. That will be a lot of damage on that car.
Yeah, he's still in the pits now, so it is a long pit stop. Just on another note, Bleeding Sunrise has cleared McQuiz and pulled away already. We've got Strangi actually in between them now, so I'm not sure whether that was Strangi. I think he made his pit stop earlier, so that must be that he has just come past McQuiz as well, unless Bleeding Sunrise has gone past him. There's too many drivers in this, so I can't work out who's where. We've got Jazzman into the pits. Jazzman in for his first stop, so that is their first scheduled pit stop for the top 4. That absolutely, we are pretty much bang on halfway through the race. Just one more lap will be really that half distance. Bumblebee in the background as well. Yeah, these will all be tyre changes. Like we said at the very beginning of this race, the expected strategy would be a single tyre change mid-race and a splash and dash pit stop somewhere else whenever suits. We'll have to keep an eye on Yasko, Coker and Tinnis.
Well, just to update you on PS Vids' strategy, he's not very far away from Jazzman right now. And that strategy is really working well. You imagine Jazzman will pull away from him, but
Jazzman will pull away, and again, PS Vids will still have his full length tyre change stop to make, so that is sort of 25 seconds difference in the second stops. But either way, he is definitely in a good position. He has had clear air for the majority of his race, which will have aided him. Definitely, it's easier to keep the rhythm. We've got Coker into the pit lane this lap as well. Yasko and Tinnis continue on for another lap. If you spot any close battles on track, let me know, Scott.
I'm just looking now. We've
trying
got
to keep an eye.
chasing down GL Strangi.
That is what I've just jumped on board with. I think that would have been Bleeding Sunrise going past Strangi earlier then. I wasn't quite sure where he'd come from in that whole situation, because the last I'd been on board with them before, obviously Bleeding Sunrise was just tucked in behind McQuiz.
Yeah.
But McQuiz definitely seems to have the pace here.
McQuiz having not long made a stop, I don't think, if I recall rightly. Or is it?
Yeah,
I've lost track of where people are pitting now. It's just.
And PS Vids is actually in for his second stop now, so that is confirmation that he is doing the tyre change mid-race now for his second stop. but he has already done the quick refuel stop earlier in the race.
Corker seems to have found a bit of time versus Jazzman. I know Jazzman had that spin. 5.7 seconds. It did show 10 seconds on my screen for a moment
probably as he crossed the start-finish line. It is very close to the pit exit, so the gaps do wait until sector 1 before you really get an accurate picture, as we have the remaining
and P4
two
coming in as
from
well.
Yeah, that's pretty much everyone in for the stop. So it will be interesting to see where Yasko and Tinus filter out in relation to Coca and Jazzman. Let's jump on board with Coca, and that will be the first one to check. Obviously the gaps had spread out a little bit in both directions. Coca very wide. That was nervy moments to watch, I tell you. Very easy to spin the car off the grass. Yasko is out of the pits and already well and truly into the lead. Yeah, this will be close between Jazz and Tinus. Jazz is just crossing the start-finish line at full speed. Tinus will come out in front.
Tinus will be on those colder tyres, so
yeah,
Jazzman push up to a little bit on those warmer tyres, fully up to temperature and pressure. Cooler Racing had made him back to P7 before making his now second stop.
Yeah. So this will be interesting to see where Sakulo Racing and PS Vids are in relation to each other. I would imagine that PS Vids will be well in front, but that will then be net 4 position, and we know Sakulo Racing has some very strong pace, and that'll be an interesting one to watch to the end. We've got another car off at the penultimate corner. That is GL Tangine. He is currently stranded just in front of the pit entry, and he is now no longer in the server, I believe.
That's a shame.
That is a shame, but that is the end of his race. Probably a big crash. He is no longer continuing in this one.
Jazz is still running very close to Tinus, 7/10 back, but the gaps look pretty similar to prior to the stops, really, apart from Jazz has closed up to Tinus. The top 3 very similar gaps. Corker's 6 point something seconds, I think he was 5.8 before the stops. Yasko's pulled a little bit out, but
Muleless Folk as well, only 4 seconds back, which has been the case since that sort of first 15 minutes of the race. So in the subsequent half an hour, 40 minutes, he's not dropped any further back.
They're ready to pick up the pieces. I don't think he's got the pace to close up or catch up to the guys ahead, but he's definitely there lurking.
Interestingly, PS Vids is actually behind Sakulo Racing, so despite that earlier crash, the net position there, Sakulo Racing is already the lead car to have made 2 stops. We have McQuiz in the pit lane making another stop. I can't remember when he made his first stop. Whether this is now a tyre change for him. Does seem to have been stationary for some time, so this may be the tyre change. Maybe he did have to box to fix damage earlier. And that puts Matthew into the top 10 at the moment. But he has Sakulo Racing on the back of him for the second time in this race. Once again, I imagine that he will not fight this anyway. This time he knows for sure that this isn't his battle. Matthew has a stop left to make at some point in this race. Sakulo Racing will be going to the end as
Jazzman 3/10 back from Tinus.
Let's jump back to this battle. In fact,
it looks like Tinus
is going to let him go, so that is communication between the pair. Tinnis maybe recognising that the outright pace isn't quite as quick. They're not much between them, but Jazzman probably has about a 10th around here. But
Jazzman much more comfortable in the Ferrari as well compared to Tinnis.
Absolutely, yeah. So that is some communication between our boys doing a sensible thing, and we like to see it. Jazzman will see if he can chase down the top two, but he does have over 5 seconds to get to Coca.
Skulo racing down the inside of Matthew in the final corner. Matthew gets the better exit onto the pit straight, using that Porsche's traction to get off the corner.
And the Mercedes tucks back into the slipstream. So Matthew is defending it, so choosing to race. Let's hope that doesn't end in tears for ultimately, as we do have some contact there, and Matthew heavily over the curb. Everyone is still facing forwards, but that was another nervy moment there. It's a very, very steep curb on the inside of turn 3, and
the grading now right on the back bumper of Matthew.
Matthew with the wheel spin on the exit as well. That gives McGrady the opportunity, and McGrady will sweep all the way around the outside. Unfortunate there overall. A tricky position for Matthew, because letting Sakudo Racing through easily might have given the opportunity to McGrady anyway, but in the end it was the contact onto the curb that really put McGrady onto the back of him. We have a stop-go 30 for speeding in the pit lane for MFR Cisco.
I think he returned to garage after getting that penalty as well there. Just jumped on board with him and he just dropped into his pit stop.
Yeah, far too quickly into the pit lane for that one. Who was that? Matthew has come straight into the pits for his second stop. I mean, he did have the slight contact through turn 2-3, but I would be surprised if there was any damage he felt was worth fixing at this point.
May just be using the pit stop just to regather his rhythm and reset himself.
Yeah,
Did get the wheel spin straight after that and lose a position, probably just taking the time to get out, getting some clear air.
He is stationary for longer than I would have expected for just a fuel stop.
Bleeding Sunrise has dropped back a little bit from Bumblebee since Bumblebee made that pass. He's now 4.5 seconds back. Oh, as he's very wide out of Cheetah. Manages to keep hold of the car.
Definitely seeing an incredible amount of drivers pushing the limits, which in no small amount has to be down to the competitiveness of this field. There is an awful lot of strong pace on show, and I think everyone is feeling the pressure that they need to be as quick as they possibly can.
Yeah, definitely a tight field all the way right throughout the field.
Definitely think that PS Vids is still in a very strong position here, and he has just been really quietly going about his business. A lot of the time he has been on his own, just picking up yellow flags just before the pit lane again, and that is GL Scorpion has been into the wall on the exit of the penultimate corner and immediately comes into the pit lane. So yeah, PS Vids really has been in clear air for a lot of this race and just putting in consistent lap times. It really is a sort of race of the mind, as as well as that actual driving skill, he's put himself in a position where there's less pressure directly from other cars, and he's really been able to just settle into the race and concentrate on his laps and his own pace.
Oh, Corker right, struggling to get through a lapping car there.
Yeah.
Looked like the lapping car was lifting off in the middle of Sunset, which may have caught Corker by surprise. He ended up just touching the grass a little bit. It does appear Yasko, aside from any issues, does have the pace, and he's just slowly pulled away further again since the first pit stops from Corker.
Indeed, that gap at the front is starting to look like it is out of reach without an incident of some kind. Jazzman has closed in a little bit on Coker. Obviously, like you say, there was that issue with the lap car, but the gap has come down by almost 2 seconds from after the previous round of pit stops. So Jazzman closing in a little bit anyway, potentially.
Yeah, potentially ruined that mistake he made as well, because that did cost him a few seconds.
Absolutely. I mean, he lost position to Tinnis and dropped a couple of seconds behind him at that point, so at least 3 or 4 seconds lost in that mistake, which is now the gap he finds himself behind Coker. We have VP McGrady very close behind Sakulo Racing. These two are offset on the strategy, but VP McGrady is tucked right in, half a second behind the Mercedes. Interesting to see that difference in pace. Obviously, Sakulo Racing was our leader for the first 10 or 15 minutes before he had the moment on the curb through the penultimate corner. But VP McGrady showing very strong pace to tuck in behind him, and really looks like he's potentially even being slightly held up.
A little bit, yeah. Like you say, McGrady has made his stop. Sakulo Racing, on his early stop, I imagine, did change tyres when he repaired that damage, so his previous, he may be on quite old tyres now, and McGrady could be on fresher tyres, is what's giving him the edge a little bit. But you say, as you said, McGrady offset on the strategy, does have to make another stop, so you would think with half an hour to go he'd have to pit and claw back up to Sakulo. You wouldn't imagine that's going to be doable.
No, exactly, but he will be just looking to maximise his own race time. He'll obviously have that consideration with who's further back once he's made his final stop. We do have a lot of drivers in this bottom half of the field that have completed both stops already, so VP McGrady will drop down the order when he does make that stop, and this is not helping him maximise his pace at this stage of the race.
Tinnis just slightly on the grass on the exit of turn 5 there.
Coker is just re-extending that gap to Jazzman again, so it may just be the ebb and flow in the traffic that was dictating the change in that gap. Obviously, that 4.5 second gap will still be uncomfortable enough for Coker, knowing that any small error will give an opportunity for Jazzman to close up.
McGrady still looking very quick in relation to Sakulo Racing. Sakulo Racing is catching a lapping car, maybe that'll cost him a little bit of time, but yes, Fids, as you said, looking very strong, just 6 seconds back from Sakulo.
I can't wait to see once the others make their final stops, which unfortunately I don't think we'll see until right at the end of the race.
Made a mistake on the exit of turn 5. Just caught the curb too much on the left-hander, lost the rear, managed to save the car, but that will have cost him maybe a second or so.
Yeah. Yes. It is the potential downside of the strategy he's put himself on that you do start to just lose focus a bit when you've got fewer cars that you are directly competing with. You do end up in a longer sort of hot lapping situation where you are just focusing on your times, and it is much easier to lose the focus a little bit. But
Field is generally looking a bit spread now. There's not very many close battles.
no, we are through an hour of racing. Matthew is just over a second behind Danny CT. I think we may have one back marker in between the pair of them, or...
There's McGrady pits as well for his final stop. Probably feels a little bit held up by Sakulo, and if you've got the pit stop to make and the guy ahead doesn't, you might as well take it and get into some fresh air, hopefully.
Absolutely. We'll see where McGrady comes out. And
very quick stop from McGrady there, just a quick refuel.
in fact, he may not even lose a position. The gap behind him for position was fairly sizable, and Pagano is just coming out of the final corner now, so McGrady should hold on to P12. As we've got, I believe that's Bumblebee just recovering, coming into the final corner. I was just on board with Matthew, and not long ago he just let Bumblebee through in the middle of the lap, and Bumblebee is now back behind him, so that will be disappointing for Matthew, having given up that time to the car lapping him, and it's going to happen all over again in another few seconds as Matthew is once again under blue flag conditions. But Bumblebee really struggling. That was another slight moment through turn 4.
Sorry for my quiet spell there.
No.
I've missed a bit of the race there. For those who don't know, I've got a child who randomly just runs into things, I mean in here. Should probably let him do the commentary. Could add a bit of a cuteness to the commentary.
Yeah, definitely could be more entertaining than us, but I had it covered while you weren't there. No, it's just while you were gone, we had Bumblebee lapping Matthew, then making a mistake, and has now dropped in back behind, and actually seems to be struggling a bit with the car because he's not straight onto the back of him again. So Bumblebee not having the best time, and actually Bleeding Sunrise is only 4 seconds back, so that will be some incentive. And Bumblebee in. So yeah. Is there some damage to repair on that car? I didn't pick up his spin exactly, I only caught the recovery. Let's keep an eye on whether this is a very quick stop or whether it is slightly longer. I mean, fairly quick, but potentially there could have been a couple of seconds of damage. But Bumblebee is back underway. We also have GL Strangy into the pits, and who is car 18 on exit with Bumblebee? Well, not car 18, sorry, that will be position 18. There was a Ferrari just exiting at the same time. Can't quite pick up who that was.
Got Bumblebee hit the sausage curb in Cheetah. Bounced the car across into the gravel, held the slide with no damage. Luckily Bleeding Sunrise did see it coming and very close to contact, but no contact was made between the two. I expect Bleeding Sunrise did absolutely finish off those tyres in that slide though. Will have got hot. Going into the pit lane would have cooled them down slightly. Bumblebee, having made his stop, is ahead of Sakula and PS Vids.
Yep, so that is interesting.
Yeah, I expected PS Vids to be a little closer than that, especially with Bumblebee having made a couple of mistakes in this race.
Yeah, we may have slightly overhyped PS Vid's position in this race. Obviously, these final stops will be quicker.
Yeah.
It's not. Oh, as we've got Bumblebee coming past a back marker, that was definitely not the best way of doing things. All got very close for a minute there.
Interesting that Tinnis is keeping within a second of Jazz having let him through. He's not pulled away, hasn't Jazz?
No, in fact that gap has come back down, hasn't it? It was sitting around a second and a half, but Tinnis now right in behind Jazzman again.
Yasko just ultimate pace out there, relentless hitting every apex, just lapping consistently and just pulling away from Coker to pull 11 seconds on somebody with Coker's speed.
I mean, yeah, we know the pace of Coker, Jazzman and Tinnis so well from our own leagues and obviously endurance races that you've done with those guys as a team.
Yeah.
For anyone to be pulling away from them is incredible pace. So Yasko to be able to do that lap after lap, absolutely phenomenal pace. So McGrady, after his final stop, is just on the back of Strangi and actually about to go side by side through the long sweeping right-hander. Strangi, I think, didn't really fight that. It looks to me like he let that one go fairly easily. As Bleeding Sunrise is in for his final stop now.
Matthew has just managed to pass Danny CT88 for P15. Like Danny CT went wide into turn 1 and Matthew just drove on by him on the inside.
Yep. So that'll be up to P15 for Matthew, and actually as it stands we have all 6 of our drivers running in the top 15. So Bleeding Sunrise in the pits now. The gap is huge back to McGrady. Oh no, ignore that, that's the timing pages again. It said we had a 57-second gap, but actually as Bleeding Sunrise is on pit exit, McGrady is coming down the start-finish straight, so that gap will close into around 5 or 6 seconds probably. So Bleeding Sunrise will have to watch out from behind. VP McGrady has shown strong pace at times here. It's been not the most straightforward race for him. Definitely been 1 or 2 incidents involved.
Bleeding Sunrise is going to have to deal with Coker unless Coker makes his final stop as well. He does have Coker not too far behind him, obviously. Bleeding Sunrise will be a lap down.
Yeah, won't be ideal. Never wanting to give up that time for blue flags, but of course it is just a part of these slightly longer races.
Jazz and Tinnis ever closer now.
Yeah, so Tinnis the more comfortable later in this stint, which it is surprising after that decision for them to swap positions. Tinnis letting Jazz go completely freely.
Also surprising considering it's getting dark. Tinnis is managing to stay with him.
Yes,
Those
never.
who don't know, Tinnis is not the best in the night.
Yeah. Tinnis is colourblind and does struggle with some of the differentiation between the grass and the track in the dark. So
Jazz there just very wide through Cheetah, just dipping the left-hand wheels on the gravel and grass. Manages to hold the car and not lose a position, but Tinnis again closer.
Absolutely right on the back of him now, isn't he?
Mueller's folk. We haven't mentioned much of him. I know we mentioned him earlier on, but again, just there, 6.5 seconds back from the Jazz Tinnis.
It's
Just
been a quiet
wide
race for him,
lap.
hasn't it? He's been P5 since Sakulo's mistake, and he's just stayed there.
Be interesting now. Sakulo Racing obviously looked very quick at the start of the race before his incident. He's only 5 and a bit seconds back from Bumblebee. Just wonder if he can close that gap now. 4.8, so it looks like it is coming down.
Yeah, absolutely. That will be a closely fought battle to the end. We've got obviously the likes of GL Whitey and Mueller's folk to make their pit stops, and where they will drop into those respective battles, I'm not quite sure. I haven't worked out what the pit lane time loss is, and obviously these final stops should really not be hugely more than that pit transit time loss. They should be stationary in their box for just 1 or 2 seconds, really.
I would imagine Whitey has the gap to get in and out of the pit lane without losing any positions. How close it will be after that, I don't know, but is it essentially an entire middle sector ahead of Bumblebee? Yeah,
it will be. It will probably be quite close between those two. Mueller's folk, should absolutely hold on to P5 then.
Yeah.
Do we have any battles further back? We've got VP McGrady is now within a second behind Bleeding Sunrise, and Whitey is actually into the pits now, so we'll find out that answer very soon.
Pagano in P13 is close to Strangi in P12.
I'm going to stay on board with McGrady closing down Bleeding Sunrise for the time being. This is the battle for the final position in the top 10.
Pagano in P13 is going around the outside of Sunset and gets it. Very nice move. Slight mistakes from Strangi in the exit of 5 gave Pagano a run. Strangi defended the inside, but Pagano just had the pace to go around.
McGrady is definitely quicker than Bleeding Sunrise at this point. 15, well, more than 15 minutes, 17 minutes to go. I don't know why I round it down all the time, but Bleeding Sunrise will have a job on his hands to try and hold on to this position.
It did look like Bleeding Sunrise was destroying his tyres at the end of his first stint as well, didn't it, at the end of the first set?
Absolutely, he did struggle, and he did pit slightly before the halfway point for that, so he will be coaxing his tyres as Jazzman is in as well, so that will release Tinnis.
Bleeding Sunrise going defensive into turn 1. Really going for the switchback, but Bleeding Sunrise using that traction on the Porsche.
I feel like that may have been a slightly premature defence that wasn't quite needed, and he's just piling the pressure onto himself now.
Yeah, he was defending a little bit of thin air, but I'm guessing he was guaranteed to save the position rather than risking a dive bomb. Turn 1 is one of those corners where you can make that sort of thing happen, I suppose. Does look to be struggling, does Bleeding Sunrise, doesn't he? He's very wide through Sunset, and again wide here.
All the way onto the grass, defends hard to the inside, and we actually have, who is that coming through? Is that Coca now? No, that's Tinnis. So they're having to get out the way of Tinnis.
That just brought something to life then, didn't it?
Absolutely. I didn't know what had happened for a second. I watched Bleeding Sunrise defend the inside, and then McGrady just step on the brakes. But yeah, Tinnis cleanly through past the pair of them, and McGrady will now concentrate on getting back onto Bleeding Sunrise's gearbox. It does look inevitable to me, unfortunately. I don't think Bleeding Sunrise is going to have enough to hang on here.
Depends how long he can keep that traction out of those crucial corners into the following braking zones.
absolutely, and you know, you keep the position for a few laps, the frustration will build for McGrady, and maybe he'll push too much going for something and make that error.
Whitey has pitted and come out 13 seconds ahead of...
Yeah, it was comfortable in the end, wasn't it?
Yeah. Like you said, we're going to have to imagine Mueller's Folk has got no stress, and anything from behind the gap was about 15
no,
seconds
absolutely.
to Whitey
He was clear of Whitey, so it has been very much a quiet P5 drive for Mueller's Folk.
Sakulo Racing in the fight with Bumblebee has pulled a few tenths back as he goes wide. He cheats a corner again, but I don't think he's pulling enough. It doesn't look like he's pulling enough back from Bumblebee to be in a position to attack him before the end of the race.
The other thing that will be interesting to see now is between Tinnis and Jazzman. Obviously the gap when Jazzman came into the pits was just under half a second. Tinnis did have that little bit of traffic to deal with immediately afterwards, but that will be very close when Tinnis does make his final pit stop.
I think Tinnis has just had contact in the final corner.
I did see one car going slowly on the exit. I'm not sure who it was. Jump back on board with Tinnis now, who is still going and looking like the car is in one piece. But
Bleeding Sunrise very on the top of... McGrady very on top of Bleeding Sunrise's rear bumper right now.
you're right, Tinnis is only just in front of this pair again, so something must have happened. I think it was a Porsche on the exit of the final corner, potentially Danny Barr, the number 9.
Again, very close this week, people graded, but that Porsche's traction out of these slower corners is what's keeping Bleeding Sunrise ahead right now, I imagine.
Yeah, just doing enough for the time being. I mean, if Bleeding Sunrise can keep it clean, it puts it on VP McGrady to take the risk and go for that move. And we know that despite the reasonably long straight down to turn 1, Kyalami is a difficult track to overtake.
So there was no contact with Tinnis and the number 9 Porsche, but the Porsche did let Tinnis through before the final corner and then outbraked himself, so Tinnis had to get out of the corner and move away. Definitely cost him some time, but Tinnis being Tinnis, using his racer's brain, knows when to live to fight another day. Very race aware, very aware of the people around him.
So Tinnis has come back out behind Jazzman, and that will be in part due to that moment. The gap we will see in a minute as they come through the first sector split. So 1.2, Tinnis also has McQuiz just in front of him to deal with before getting onto the back of Jazzman again.
McQuiz lets Tinnis go. Bleeding Sunrise has pulled out 7/10 on McGrady right now.
Yeah, McGrady just struggling to stay quite as close as he was earlier.
Potentially Bleeding Sunrise could have weathered the storm, as you said. Keeping her ahead for long enough could force McGrady to push too hard.
As they both get past another back marker there.
Number 9 Porsche, very wide in cheetah corner. I don't know if he's got any damage. I've just jumped on board with him. Car looks okay at the minute, but there's definitely a yellow flag moment there for him as he's wide out of the final corner as well.
It's not been the best of races for him, but still running and looking to get to the end. Once again, Bleeding Sunrise gaining another couple of tenths on McGrady, so this is not the one-way battle that it looked like it was going to be.
PS Fizz, I've just jumped on board with him, lapping very consistently, but has just lost the rear end in the left-hander after the long right-hander into the second sector. He's now in the S's. Don't know if those rear tyres are starting to give up anymore, if that was just a general mistake. He has no pressure from behind or ahead, nothing ahead at the minute, so no reason for him to make mistakes.
About 10 seconds up the road from this battle that we are watching very closely between Bleeding Sunrise and McGrady, but we can't afford to be losing the back end and having any moments like that, because these two will be right there if he does. Don't know if you spotted anything earlier on. I've just noticed that we've got Matthew down in P20.
I was just looking at that myself.
He was running P15 earlier on, so that must have been some kind of incident.
I'll see if I can spot.
I'm not sure how long ago that would have been very much focused on this Bleeding Sunrise and VP McGrady battle.
I think he's been into the pit lane. Whether that's for damage or whether he's just miscalculated the fuel. Oh, just jumping on the replay footage and he's got heavy damage.
Sorry. Completely zoned out on what you were saying there.
Nice. Matthew looks to have made damage on lap 41 at some point. The replay doesn't quite go back far enough. I catch him in the pit lane with the bonnet up and bent and cab not looking very well.
I don't know what will have happened then, but that is an unfortunate end to his fight for that position in the top 15.
Viewless folk and Yasko leaving it to the very last minute, it appears, to make their final stops.
Yeah, obviously there's not anything particularly to be gained from making that stop earlier.
No.
I think neither of them really has an intense battle that they're in the middle of. Yasko, obviously, it's comfortably been out front for quite a while in this race now. Muleless Folk is very much in no man's land in P5 as well once he's completed that final stop.
Bumblebee is in some sort of issue because he's consistently been losing time. I don't think he's made a mistake, he's just been losing multiple tenths per lap to Segulo Racing now. Segulo Racing half a second back.
Yeah, whether that's a fuel calculation issue and he's having to do a bit of saving towards the end. Very much speculating there. It could have just been a mistake or the tyres starting to go away, but definitely under pressure from Segulo Racing now.
he didn't seem to lose all the time in one chunk. He just seems to have lost like half a second, 7/10 per lap. So whether he is just, like you say, fuel saving or tyres are dead, he's yeah, definitely struggling, it seems, in these final stages. Yasko is just leaving the pits after his final stop, coming out into the middle of the battle between Bleeding Sunrise and McGrady.
Bumblebee just had a little bit of a slide and a wiggle of the back end, and Sakulo Racing is all over the back of him now. And it's very tight up into the hairpin. Sakulo Racing up the inside. Bumblebee looked like he wanted to turn in as normal, ended up having to leave the space slightly, and Sakulo Racing on the outside down the hill, and it looks like Bumblebee may just hold on for now. They are almost side by side down into Cheetah. That does not go. Sakulo Racing backs off and will have to try again.
These two teammates as well, it would appear, with the very similar liveries and colours.
Yeah, I did speculate on that earlier in my head.
I think they are teammates with, not 100% sure, but I think they are teammates with Coker and Yasko.
Yeah, they are obviously running almost the identical liveries in the different cars, but they're still very much racing each other here. And Bumblebee is really under pressure, definitely not feeling the most comfortable at this point. We also have
close.
Yeah, McGrady close to Bleeding Sunrise. We also have McQuiz on the back of GL Strangi for P13.
After all, it was a bit of a lull during the middle and towards the final
but
third
it's
of this race, but it seemed,
there's too much to watch now.
Yeah. Sakulo Racing looks to be through Bumblebee, looks to have got it done in the hairpin.
Okay, I'm still following McQuiz here, who had closed up to 2/10 behind. He is trying to put Strangi off down into turn one. Obviously just a couple of laps left to get anything done here. It does look like Bleeding Sunrise may be doing enough to hold on to that top 10 position. VP McGrady just sitting, that sort of 7/10 gap has been the norm for the last 4 laps or so now.
McQuiz does look fresher, does look tighter on his lines, looks more comfortable in the car currently, but whether he can get it done in these last 2 laps, like you say.
What we have, Yasko is just in front of them, just coming down to the final corner, so this will be the final lap for McQuiz and Strangi. Oh, hold on, no, sorry, I was on board with someone else. But yeah, either way, they've got this lap and one more, so McQuiz really only a few opportunities left.
Bleeding Sunrise starting his final lap as well, still ahead of McGrady, who has closed in a little bit.
Oh, and McQuiz quite wide out of the penultimate corner, keeps it together and doesn't really lose any time, but he's giving it everything to try and get this final position.
On the final lap, we've got one AOR driver defending for his life and one AOR driver pushing for his life to get past the next car.
I mean, Bleeding Sunrise, really the key overtaking opportunity is turn one. These guys are the ones sat in behind Yasko in the lead, so this is their final lap as well.
Yeah.
It's really just the last opportunities down the bottom of the hill here for McGrady. The gap is half a second.
Traction still just pulls him away even on this final lap. Just enough of a gap. You would think, unless McGrady does go for it would be a pretty ridiculous lunge from this far back.
And
both wide though, slightly around the hairpin.
that looks to be it now.
McQuiz has got through Strange somewhere in this lap as well after him.
It doesn't matter which battle I watch, it's always the wrong one. But Bleeding Sunrise will come across the line and just hangs on. It was less than a tenth to McGrady across the line, even just in that final corner.
Corker coming across the line now to take P2.
And we've got Jazzman and Tinnis right together as well, and I think Jazz has let Tinnis back through. That is obviously after the swap earlier on. Tinnis gave Jazzman the opportunity to chase down the two in front, but it couldn't be done. So
does take P5, just short of 9 seconds back from Jazzman.
And there we are, McQuiz with that position on the final lap as well, comes across P13. And I think that is our close battles done and dusted. We've just got the last cars waiting to come through.
Sakulo Racing coming across the line in P7. I think he dropped a P19 after that incident and obviously had damage which will have cost him time in the pit stop and on those laps while he ran the damage.
Tough to really figure out the net position he was down to, but after a big crash, definitely a strong comeback back to P7.
Which is a testament to why you should never give up, especially if you crash early in a race. It can always come back.
Of course.
Yes, Vid's coming across the line in P9.
I think he will be our last driver to complete the race. And there we are. So, I mean, an interesting race up and down the field. We had all sorts going on with the strategy, that's for sure. In the end, Yasko was really just too quick and consistent. Obviously, early on, the challenge was provided by Sakulo Racing. Didn't last long until his incident with the wall. Coker kept him honest for a long time, but ultimately that Lamborghini taking the win relatively comfortably. Tinnis P3, Jazzman P4 for the AOR boys, and PS Vids and Bleeding Sunrise both getting themselves into the top 10. Very different races in terms of the strategy and how they got themselves there. PS Vids with a much quieter drive, just carrying on with his own pace. Bleeding Sunrise definitely involved in a lot of battling. And a strong 13th for McQuiz. And unfortunate for Matthew, that incident.
I think he'll be disappointed
later
there.
on in the race. He was right with McQuiz up until that and would have been right in the same sort of area. So
I think he was P15 like you said before at one point, and we had all 6 drivers in the top 15. But still, with 4 of our drivers finishing in the top 10, that's not a bad finish at all, with one of them
not a bad showing for AOR.
Fortunately, it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 drivers not finishing the race, 6 drivers not finishing the race, including Cisco. Which is a shame, but again, testament to somebody like Sakulo who has a big incident, keeps going, comes back to P7. Those drivers hopefully would look at that and think, I probably could have done a bit better there if I'd have carried on.
Yeah, it's always nice to see the drivers that start the race finish the race. Obviously, there are occasional disconnects and things that are completely out of people's control, but either way, a very enjoyable race to watch. I definitely felt myself being confused throughout most of it, but
it was very confusing with the two pit stops and pretty much open what any driver could do, so at any given minute we didn't know what drivers were doing what, but it all came out in the wash.
It did all come out in the wash, and other than maybe being a bit optimistic on where PS Vids was going to end up late on, we roughly had an idea of who was where. yeah, I
That's
think
it.
we will leave it there. Obviously, like we said earlier, this was a one-off event, but potentially this sort of race might happen again in the future. It was not organised by us at all. We were invited to bring some drivers to this event, so uh, yeah, we will see whether it's something that happens again in the future. But definitely been a very interesting race and event. And
Yeah, my first time ever streaming. Harder than it looks, is what I'll say.
yes, I can agree with you on that one, but definitely appreciate having the support. It's made it 10 times easier to not have to talk just myself for the entirety of it. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I will.
Hopefully, we'll look forward to another one of those. We'll send some AOR drivers back in again.
Green light. Go, go, go.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for anyone that is still watching. Probably not at this point with everything done. But anyone watching it back later, and I will say good night.